Okay, if you are watching this video, it means you are ready to work on royal icing consistencies. So there's 3 different consistencies that we'll use in almost all of my classes. Sometimes you won't use a super thick detail icing, but I always try to save a little bit right out of the mixer and just put it in a Tupperware just in case I do need a super thick detail icing. So this is my icing right out of the mixer. This is how thick it is right out of the mixer. And if yours is much thinner than this, you can add just some powdered sugar, just a little bit at a time until it gets to a nice kind of like toothpastey consistency. And if it's much thicker, you can just add a little bit of water until it gets a little bit more workable. So it's pretty stiff. When you kind of take off your spatula, you'll be able to kind of form peaks that will stay the texture that they are. They won't fall a whole lot. And this texture is really the stiff or detail texture that you can use when you're trying to get things to stay a certain texture when you're working on specific details. So in order to do this, I usually just start by just using a little half cup, depending on how many cookies you're icing will depend, but usually a half cup or so is just fine. So just put it right in a bowl, and I always just try to stick to a 1 bowl rule. That way I don't end up with a ton of dishes at the end of it. And I'm just adding some food coloring today so that I can just kind of show you just how far 1 drop of icing goes, and to make it a little bit easier to see what I'm doing. So as you can see, 1 drop of that lime green goes a long way. So when you're coloring your icing, really try to be a minimalist. That way you don't run into color bleed situations later on where your icing has too much color and the colors kind of bleed together. You really want to keep it as minimal as you can to get as dark as the shade as you want. And vibrant icing, bright colors, dark colors, they develop even more over time. So if you're looking for something to be dark or really vibrant, like a vibrant red, color it to kind of a lighter shade and just kind of see how it develops. So you'll see that this is a pretty thick detail consistency, kind of like toothpaste. Now I just want to show you some of the things that you can do with this consistency. So I'm gonna bag it up, and I just use like a drinking glass. And just kind of make some room in there, and then just kind of get it all on your spatula and plop it on in. And you'll notice that the thinner we go with the icing, the easier it is to get it to go into the piping. So we want to kind of squeeze down the icing as far down as we can get it. Now you'll notice there's tons of air down here because this is a super thick icing, so it's not going to go all the way down to the bottom. But it will go down kind of if you massage it down. That way you can kind of get out all the air bubbles that would be in there. And then let's push it down. And I have these handy little bag ties that I love. So once you've bagged your icing, usually I do my icing the day before I decorate, so I usually just leave the bags unsnipped and just throw them in the fridge. I find that that kind of helps with the consistency and the separation of the color, but just to show you guys what you might use this for. When you are snipping the tip of your bag, you want to snip it just barely. And you want it to be a very, very, very small snip and very straight. So I'll show you what this stiff icing. So the stiff icing is really meant for details, textures, and writing. Although lately I've found that I like writing with kind of a thinner consistency, but I'll show you what writing would look like with this. So if you wanted to do kind of fine lines with texture and you wanted that texture to stay exactly how you have it, this consistency is going to stay exactly how you pipe it. It will not change. It'll stay exactly how it is. You can also use it for writing. This consistency. And like I said, I've found recently that I actually like to use a little bit thinner icing for my writing. But as you can see, it definitely holds the shape pretty well when it's this thick. So this consistency here is that stiff details, textures, things that you want to stay exactly the way that it is as it comes out of the bag. So that's what you would use this detail stiff consistency for.